surreal, unforgettable. Those lyrics from MacArthur Park didn't just stick in your head. When Donna Summer sang them, they sounded like heartbreak dressed in velvet, every syllable, every breath, drenched in feeling. It was the kind of delivery only she could give, the kind that made even the strange sound sacred. But Donna Summer's gift wasn't just her voice, it was her presence, her mystery, her power. She was more than a disco queen. She was a spiritual force in sequins, a preacher's daughter with the voice of an angel and the fire of a rebel. In the flashing lights of Studio 54, she reigned supreme, her sound booming from every club, every car, every corner of the world. And yet, beneath the glamour, something more complex was always stirring. Behind that flawless voice was a woman at war with herself, and with the machine that tried to own her. In 1975, when Love to Love You Baby dropped like a sensual bomb on the music world, Donna's moans and whispers scandalized some, hypnotized millions, and changed the sound of pop forever. But privately, she wept. Rumor has it she suffered a breakdown during this time, devastated by how her artistry was reduced to a sex symbol caricature. Some say she felt manipulated, that the track's infamous sensuality wasn't her idea at all, but the labels. Then there was the faith. Always the faith. Donna never let go of her belief in God, even when the disco lifestyle tried to seduce her into darkness. But that, too, became a source of conflict. In the 1980s, she was accused, perhaps unfairly, of making anti-gay remarks tied to her religious beliefs. The fallout was brutal. She denied it. Some forgave her, others never did. Whispers, headlines, glitter, grace. Donna Summer's life was not just a rise and fall, it was a battle between the soul and the stage, and every note she ever sang, from the club anthems to the gospel ballads, carried the weight of a woman who wanted to be more than just a fantasy. This is the story of LaDonna Adrienne Gaines, the Boston girl with a church voice who took on the world and paid a price for her crown. A story of survival, surrender, reinvention, and redemption. If you love uncovering the real stories behind the voices that shaped music history, hit that subscribe button and join us here on Retro Waves, where legends live on. Before she was Donna Summer, the shimmering queen of disco, she was LaDonna Adrienne Gaines, born on New Year's Eve, 1948, in Boston, Massachusetts. The last baby born that year at Boston City Hospital. A child of destiny, some would later say. She was raised in a modest but loving home in the Dorchester neighborhood. Her father, Andrew Gaines, worked as a butcher. Her mother, Mary, was a schoolteacher. Theirs was a devout Christian household, filled with strong values, hard work, and music that soared straight to heaven. Gospel wasn't just a genre in the Gaines home, it was a way of life. It filled the corners of their house and the hearts of everyone inside it. LaDonna was the third of 7 children, but even as a little girl her voice stood out. The story goes that at just 10 years old, she shocked her entire church congregation when she stood up during a service and sang a solo that brought people to tears. It was raw, powerful, and otherworldly. People didn't just hear LaDonna, they felt her. She would later say that she never remembered a time she didn't want to sing. But it wasn't about fame then. It was about feeling something bigger, something holy. In high school, she joined a local rock band called The Crow, where she became the only black member of the group. Even then, she wasn't afraid to cross boundaries. People took notice of her voice, rich, textured, with a natural vibrato that sounded almost operatic. And yet, she was also deeply shy, a paradox wrapped in poise. But she wasn't content staying in Boston. After graduation, she made a bold move, auditioning for a touring production of the rock musical Hair in New York. She didn't get the U.S. role, but fate had other plans. She was invited to join the German version of the show. Just like that, LaDonna packed her bags and flew to Europe, barely 18, chasing something most girls her age only dared to dream about. It would be in Europe, far from home, far from safety, that Donna Summer would be born. Not just in name, but in spirit. Europe in the late 1960s was a long way from Boston, culturally, emotionally, spiritually. But for LaDonna Gaines, it was where she began to truly stretch her wings. After landing a role in the German production of Hair, she quickly immersed herself in a new world, one where art was bolder, freer, and a little more dangerous. She learned to speak German fluently and took on more roles in musical theater, Godspell, Porgy and Bess, and others. But life overseas wasn't all glitter and freedom. LaDonna was a young black woman navigating unfamiliar terrain in a post-war Europe that still carried deep scars and silent biases. She was far from her family, and though the stage gave her purpose, there were long, lonely nights. She battled culture shock, financial struggles, and identity confusion, trying to reconcile the gospel-singing Boston girl with the European bohemian artist she was becoming. It was during this time she met Helmut Summer, an Austrian actor she later married. When she adopted his surname with a slight anglicized twist, Donna Summer was born, not just as a name, but as an emerging persona. Their relationship wouldn't last, but his name would become synonymous with one of music's most iconic voices. To keep food on the table, she took any musical opportunity she could get. She recorded background vocals, jingles, and obscure singles under various pseudonyms. A few early songs floated around in Italy and Germany, but nothing caught fire. Still, her voice, that unforgettable instrument, kept opening doors. Everything changed when she crossed paths with Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotti, two producers based in Munich with an ear for innovation. The trio began experimenting with a new sound, electronic, sensual, hypnotic. It wasn't disco yet, not exactly, but it was something raw and primal, something ahead of its time. Still, breaking through was far from easy. Record labels didn't know what to do with a black American woman living in Europe, recording moody synth-pop songs. There was no blueprint. But Donna believed in the sound, even when the world wasn't listening yet. This was the crucible, the space between anonymity and legend. And Donna Summer, though bruised by the climb, was only just beginning her rise. In 1975, Donna Summer's life changed forever, and not entirely for the better. She stepped into the vocal booth to record a new song produced by Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotti. It was called "Love to Love You, Baby." Inspired by Marilyn Monroe and moaning with sensuality, Donna was encouraged to play a role, to perform the song like a fantasy character. What started as a simple track turned into a 17-minute hypnotic anthem of seduction, a daring experiment, a revolution in sound. When the extended version was released in the U.S., the reaction was explosive. Radio stations were scandalized, fans were mesmerized, and Donna Summer was suddenly everywhere. She went from anonymous to infamous, crowned the First Lady of Love, a sex goddess of the disco era. But behind the scenes, Donna wasn't celebrating. She was struggling. Few knew that Donna came from a deeply religious background. She had always considered her voice a gift from God. So, when the music industry turned her into a symbol of lust and fantasy, it cut deep. Rumors spread that she broke down emotionally not long after the song's release, collapsing under the pressure and shame of an image she didn't recognize. Some reports say she refused to perform the song live at first, uncomfortable with the way people reacted to her moans and sighs. She later confessed in interviews that she would sometimes hide in hotel bathtubs, crying, overwhelmed by fame, spiritual guilt, and a sense of losing control over her own identity. She was also exhausted. Her schedule was relentless. Performances, interviews, photo shoots. She was being pulled in every direction, expected to maintain the allure, the mystery, the sensuality, constantly. No room to breathe, no room to just be LaDonna. And the industry? It didn't care. It wanted more. More Donna, more fantasy, more disco. What the world saw was a confident, glittering diva. What they didn't see was the woman quietly unraveling behind closed doors, searching for God, searching for peace, and trying to reclaim her soul from the strobe-lit circus that had swallowed her whole. Love to Love You Baby didn't just launch a career, it redefined an era. After Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotte extended the track into a 17-minute odyssey of breathy moans and layered synths, the song was shipped off to Casablanca Records in the U.S. The label's head, Neil Bogart, played it at a party, and the response was instantaneous. People didn't just dance, they melted. He called Europe the next day and said, "Give me more. Give me something the clubs have never heard before." What followed was a cultural earthquake. The song hit #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Nightclubs couldn't get enough. The sensual, futuristic sound, powered by Donna's velvet delivery, became a template for disco and eventually for dance music itself. But Donna wasn't ready. In a 1976 interview, she admitted, "I just did it as an acting job, but it followed me like a shadow." She was proud of the innovation, of what the track meant musically. But the public perception of her became deeply one-dimensional. People saw her as a fantasy, a seductress, a voice wrapped in satin sheets. But Donna was a songwriter, a thinker, a woman with depth. She knew she had more to offer. And so, slowly, she began reclaiming the narrative. She co-wrote her own material. She became involved in the production process. Behind the scenes, she wasn't just singing. She was shaping sounds, structuring albums, creating concept projects long before it was trendy. She fused storytelling and disco in 4 seasons of Love, Once Upon a Time, and later Bad Girls, ambitious records that proved she was far more than a pretty voice in a pretty dress. And yet, the image from Love to Love You Baby lingered like perfume. It opened doors and placed chains all at once. Still, Donna Summer never backed down. She didn't run from the song. She built on it, transcended it. And in doing so, she transformed disco from a niche movement into a global, spiritual, and emotional experience. That song may have defined the moment, but it didn't define her. By the late 1970s, Donna Summer wasn't just topping charts. She was the charts. With hit after hit, I Feel Love, Last Dance, Hot Stuff, Bad Girls, On the Radio, she became a force that couldn't be ignored. She wasn't a one-hit wonder. She was a phenomenon. In 1979 alone, she scored 3 #1 hits, won a Grammy, and released Bad Girls, an album that fused rock, soul, disco, and social commentary, all co-written and co-produced by Donna herself. What made her different was more than just talent. It was range, not just vocally, but emotionally. She could sing about heartbreak, seduction, power, and spirituality, all in the same breath. Her voice was a bridge between the church and the club, between pain and release. When I Feel Love dropped in 1977, it changed music history. Giorgio Moroder's pulsing synthesizer track and Donna's ethereal vocals laid the foundation for what would become techno, house, and electronic dance music. Even decades later, legends like David Bowie, Brian Eno, and Beyoncé would cite it as a groundbreaking moment. And yet, as her fame skyrocketed, Donna stayed somewhat of an enigma. She didn't party like many of her contemporaries. She was protective of her private life. She didn't chase scandal, but controversy often found her anyway. Still, the world kept dancing. She became the first artist ever to have 3 consecutive double albums hit #1 on the Billboard charts. Her music transcended race, gender, and class. Disco might have had its critics, but Donna was above it all because she had become a universal language. Artists across generations, from Madonna to Beyoncé, from Whitney Houston to Dua Lipa, would later credit Donna Summer as a guiding light, a blueprint. Even when disco fell out of favor in the early '80s, Donna's influence never dimmed. Her voice kept echoing long after the mirror balls came down. Behind the sequins and synthesizers, Donna Summer was first and foremost a mother, a wife, a believer. In the 1980s, she married singer-songwriter Bruce Sudano, a relationship that brought her much-needed peace after the storm of the previous decade. Together, they had 2 daughters, and Donna had another from her earlier marriage. She often spoke of how motherhood grounded her, reminded her of what truly mattered. She stepped back from the spotlight at times, not out of fading relevance, but out of choice. She didn't need the limelight to validate her anymore. Her focus shifted toward faith, family, and healing. She became a born-again Christian, leaned into her spirituality, and began to view her musical gifts as a form of ministry, a way to uplift rather than merely entertain. But tragedy would eventually return. In 2012, the world was stunned by the news that Donna Summer had passed away at the age of 63.
Sad news today out of Naples, Florida. The disco queen Donna Summer has died.
The cause? Lung cancer, something many didn't even know she had. Whispers began almost immediately. Some speculated it was linked to her smoking past. Others believed it stemmed from toxic exposure to dust and chemicals during the 9/11 attacks, which she had witnessed firsthand while living in New York. She had kept her diagnosis quiet, choosing instead to spend her final years surrounded by loved ones, painting, writing, and reflecting. Her death was sudden, but her life had been full. Her family described her as joyful, deeply spiritual, and full of grace to the very end. The world lost a star, but her light, her voice, and her soul were already immortal. In her later years, Donna Summer lived quietly, but with intention. She moved to Nashville with her husband Bruce, finding comfort in the slower pace of Southern life. She painted, wrote poetry, and spent precious time with her children and grandchildren. Though she occasionally released music and made public appearances, she no longer chased the charts or the glamour. She had already done it all, and done it with elegance. But make no mistake, Donna never stopped being an artist. Her 2008 album Crayons showed she could still surprise and captivate, with songs that spanned funk, soul, pop, and electronic. It was her subtle reminder that her creativity had never been confined to the disco era. She still had stories to tell. And when asked about her legacy, Donna was clear. "I want to be remembered as somebody who made music that lifted people up." She never denied her past, not the glitter, not the controversy, not the complications. Instead, she embraced the full spectrum of her life, understanding that it was in the tension between light and dark where her art truly lived. To this day, Donna Summer remains a guiding voice for dreamers, dancers, and believers alike, a woman who rose, broke, healed, and soared again, all on her own terms. Donna Summer gave us more than music. She gave us moments, unforgettable, emotional, electric. She gave us songs that made us move, made us feel, made us remember. Whether it was the longing in On the Radio, the fire of Hot Stuff, or the spiritual glow of State of Independence, she left behind a soundtrack that still pulses in our hearts. But beyond the hits, she left something deeper, a story of a woman who stood tall through reinvention, judgment, and personal storms, a woman who never stopped reaching for the light. What's your favorite Donna Summer song? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear the soundtrack of your memories. And if you're into iconic artists, timeless tracks, and powerful stories from the golden eras of music, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss a beat, right here on Retro Waves, where legends live on.